The movie begins with Max explaining in a voiceover that he was once a cop and a road warrior before the post-apocalyptic world, and he now runs aimlessly in the desert of Australia just trying to survive. He's haunted by the ghost of his dead wife and child, and other people asking him why he didn't save them. As he's driving off the desert, he's pursued and captured by a group of scavengers called the War Boys. The War Boys take Max into their home, the Citadel, and then shave his head and face and tattoo his back with a notice saying that he was a universal blood donor type O negative, intending to use him as a blood supply. But when they try to tattoo him with an image of a skull engulfed in fire, he manages to break free and run away. They chase him through the caves and we see how big the Citadel is, but as he kept running, Max continues to see images of the dead, which makes him distracted and slow. He then jumps off a cliff and latches onto a swinging hook, but he kept swinging back toward the War Boys and they managed to pull him back into the tunnel and capture him. The Citadel is led by Immortal Joe. He controls everything including food and water, and they beg him for it and worship him as their god. Joe addresses his followers in the group below the Citadel, telling them that he's raised them from the ashes. He then supplies the people with some water, making everyone go into a frenzy and fight for it, and then Joe shuts it off after a few seconds. He then warns the people not to become addicted to water so they don't go mad over its absence. Joe then sends his high commander, Imperator Furiosa, out on a huge war rig to collect fuel from the gas tower. Furiosa has a metal prosthesis on her left arm and hand, and while on the road, Furiosa diverts the path to Gastown and heads to the east. Her escort War Boys ask her why she's not following the main road, and she convinces them that they need a detour, but Joe is also alerted to the change, and he runs to the locked room where he keeps his 5 wives, who are young women chosen to breed his children, and he sees that they're all gone, and they've left a writing on the floor that reads, "Our children will not be warlords." An old woman tells Joe that he cannot own a human, and that Furiosa has taken the women away from him. Joe then immediately calls on his commanders to get their troops and go after her, and after the news of her betrayal reaches the people, all of the War Boys gather to join the chase, but the one called Nux, who's been dreaming of this day, was so weak that he needed a blood bank, which meant that Max, who was going along for the ride, chained to Nux and connected to the driver via a transfusion tube. The War Boys believe that Joe could deliver them to the gates of Valhalla, so Nux is willing to risk death in service to his leader. The War Boys ride after Furiosa's war rig, which is attacked by another scavenging tribe, the Buzzards, and we then see Nux strapping Max to the hood of his car and eagerly chases Furiosa alongside the others. They first successfully attack and destroy the Buzzards, but as they attempt to get close to the rig, Furiosa manages to shake most of them off, but Nux, filled with adrenaline, gets close to the rig as Max attempts to break free. Furiosa drives toward an enormous sandstorm as she plans to lose them inside of it. But Nux continues to chase her, even as they head into the dangerous sand tornadoes. A few War Boys are killed in the storm, while Nux plans a kamikaze run by spilling fuel inside his car, but just before he can do it, Max breaks from his chain and overpowers and stops him, which leads the two to crash in the storm. After the sandstorm is gone, Max awakens to find himself chained to an unconscious Nux and still wearing his muzzle. He grabs a shotgun and tries to shoot off Nux's wrist, but the gun didn't work, and he then sees Furiosa's rig from afar and walks there, and he finds the 5 wives cleaning themselves with a hose and removing their chastity belts with bolt cutters, and one of them, called Splendid, is 9 months pregnant with Joe's child, and another, Dag, is also carrying his baby. Max points the shotgun at the women and demands the hose, and he drinks and tells them to use the cutters to cut off his chain, and Dag then tries to do it but she struggles to break it, and Furiosa sees Max distracted and tackles him and tries to shoot him with the malfunctioning gun, and the two then get into a fist fight which wakes up Nux, and he helps Max fight Furiosa, who's assisted by the other women. Max takes a gun from the side of the rig and manages to apprehend Furiosa, and Nux then cuts the chains off and thanks Max for helping him catch the traitor, but before he can finish his speech, Max punches him in the stomach and takes the rig for himself and just drives off. But the car stops after going a short distance because Furiosa installed a kill switch and she's the only one that knows how to start it back up again. So Max lets her back on the rig, but he doesn't want to take the rest of the women. Furiosa insists that they should come along as she's guiding them to a location that she calls Green Place, but when he still refuses, she tells him that Joe's reinforcements are coming back and that if they catch them, Joe will kill them as Max accidentally has hurt Joe's favorite wife. Max finally gives in and they ride off in the war rig, and Nux sneaks on board, but as he tries to attack Furiosa, he is quickly grabbed by the wives and they throw him off the rig. Furiosa drives the rig into a canyon where she has an arrangement with a group of biker bandits, and they'll close the pass behind her with a rock slide to foil her pursuers in exchange for 3,000 gallons of fuel in their trailer pod. But because she said she will come along, she tells everyone to hide and teaches Max the sequence of switches to start the car, and when she asks his name, he didn't want to tell her, so she just says, "When I yell fool, drive out as fast as possible." The group sees Joe and his forces closing in, so Furiosa gets out and shouts at the bikers that she's brought the 3,000 gallons of fuel as agreed, and that she'll detach the pod. One of the bikers complains that she said there would be a few pursuers, but there are 3 large parties following from afar. Furiosa, seeing the deal is going sideways and the war boys getting closer, yells fool and jumps back into the rig as Max drives the rig away. The bikers blow up the overpass, temporarily halting Joe's pursuit, and as they chase the group, Furiosa and Max fight off the biker bandits with their superior gunmanship, and Joe in his large-wheeled off-road vehicle is able to climb over the rockfall, and he's joined by Nux, who proves that Splendid is on Furiosa's rig with a scrap of cloth that he'd taken from her, and another chase ensues through the desert. The war boys keep trying to overtake the rig while Joe catches up and he tries to shoot at the rig until Splendid steps out as a human shield, and Joe couldn't do a thing without hurting his potential son, and Nux attempts to help Joe, who sprays chrome paint on Nux's mouth with the promise of bringing him to the gates of Valhalla if Nux succeeds, but almost immediately Nux loses his gun in front of Joe, who continues driving with disappointment. The chase continues and Splendid tries climbing back to the front of the rig, but she fails off and is run over by Joe's car. The women tell Max to turn back, but he refuses, and when he tells Furiosa that Splendid went under the wheels, Furiosa says that they must keep going, and the wives cry for Splendid, and apparently Nux has slipped back into the rig, but after seeing his blood bank as the reason Joe's favorite wife is dead, he believes Joe will never let him into Valhalla, and he lies on the floor sad and scared for his life, but one of the wives comfort him, and at the front, Furiosa tells Max about the green place where she was actually born, and she tells him plants and water are there, and Max asks her why she left the green place if it was so great, and she tells him that she was abducted by Joe as a child. As they continue driving through the night, the rig becomes stuck in a large field of mud. Joe's reinforcements from the bullet farm get close to them, but Furiosa gets a clean shot, taking out the bullet farmer's lights and blinding him. Nux suggests that they attract the track's winch cable to a nearby tree and pull the rig forward, and the bullet farmer leader then starts shooting aimlessly, almost killing the wives, so Max grabs supplies and goes to him, and he tells Furiosa to go without him if he doesn't return in time, and shortly after, Max returns with the bullet farmer's blood on his face, along with a nice supply of guns and ammo. In the morning, the rig comes up to a tower where a naked woman, the Valkyrie, is screaming for help. Max thinks it's a trap, but Furiosa steps out and tells Valkyrie her mother's name and her affiliation with the clan. The Valkyrie climbs down the tower and puts on a robe, and more older women emerge, and the eldest recognizes Furiosa. Furiosa tells them that she's taking the women from the citadel to the green place, but the leader tells her that the muddy swamp that they passed through was the green place, and that it's been long since it's become uninhabitable. Furiosa then walks into the sand and falls on her knees, screaming in despair. The elders agree to help the wives travel across the salt flats in search of a new home. Max, still haunted by the images of his wife and child, decides to help them too, but he tells them to go back to the citadel and take it over instead of driving on an endless sand for 160 days. The citadel has water and massive crops, so it's the best place for everyone to live. They plan to trap Joe and his army in canyons and take over the citadel with the highest commander, Furiosa. The group rides back in the direction of the citadel, and Joe sees them in his telescope, knowing full well what their plan is. He gathers his army and chases them, and the elders help fight back, but they kept dying one by one. Max and Furiosa kill some of the war boys, and Max takes over one of the leader's car, and one of the wives is captured by Joe's men and put in his car. Furiosa is also stabbed in the back, but the wives help kill the attacker. Then Furiosa jumps on Joe's car, and his wife distracts Joe long enough to give Furiosa an opportunity to hook Joe's mask onto the wheels of the car, and the wheel then rips the mask apart and kills Joe. The rig then heads toward the canyon with the others still trying to stop them, and Max and the wives get into Joe's car, and Nux, who's still driving the rig, crashes his car to the canyon, sacrificing himself to kill Joe's army. On the way back to the citadel, Furiosa collapses, losing blood, but Mac gives her a transfusion of his own blood, and he finally tells her his name as she closes her eyes. The group arrives at the citadel, and Max presents the people with Joe's mouthless corpse, making everyone cheer, and they rip apart Joe's corpse and feed off of him. Furiosa then comes out of the car, and the people chant to let them in, and the guards cave in and the group is let in as Furiosa gets control. The water supply is brought out, giving people as much water as they need, and then on the last scene, Furiosa sees Max in the crowd, and they give each other a look of respect before he slips slips away into the crowd to continue down his own path. And that is how today's movie comes to an end. I hope you guys enjoyed this recap. Make sure to leave me a like, leave a comment, also sub to my channel. I love you guys so much, and I promise to see you on my next recap. Bye.